2004, the civilian space exploration team launched their GoFast rocket 72 miles above the Earth to become the first amateur group to be confirmed as having launched a rocket into space. They repeated this feat 10 years later in 2014 in the video you see playing here. During the 2014 launch, the GoFast rocket beat its own previous record by achieving an altitude of 73 miles above the Earth, while simultaneously filming the view with a variety of GoPro cameras that you see playing here. Although the rocket is rotating very rapidly at takeoff, it quickly comes to a sudden stop when it reaches a point near the apogee after its launch. The sudden stop of the rocket's rotation became a popular talking point for flat earthers all over YouTube, and you can still see this claim being made to this day, where they will say that the first amateur rocket to be launched into space actually bounced off the dome and was captured doing so on video. Notice the man I've circled in the middle. He's got a hat and glasses and his hand on the switch of this rocket. This is Michaelson. He created the civilian space exploration team that built this rocket, and he's a real rocket man. He knows a thing or two about how this rocket works. I had a chance to meet up with him at Cape Canaveral and ask him why the video looks the way it does and why the rocket appeared to suddenly stop as it traveled up towards its apogee. Astronomy Live here. Just wanted to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Can you talk about the D-spin mechanism that you used on the GoFast rocket and,
Yes.
and why it appeared it did what it did after it cut off the engine?
Well, I'll give you a little background first. One of the things to stabilize the rocket, we had to spin it 6 times per second because the government wouldn't allow us to put any type of steering on it itself. So it's basically like firing a bullet out of a rifle and it spins. And so it's set up to do 6 times per second, thereabouts. Well, on our very first flight that we did, one of the major problem that we had was the G-forces shut down our cameras. So after the GoPros came out, you could buy them cheap and stuff. We put GoPros on our next flight, and it wasn't to make the Earth look round or flat or anything. We put them on because GoPros are cheap and they get a very nice shot. So because we had to spin this and we wanted to get good shots of Earth, we decided to build a D-spin. And basically it was a cable that was wrapped around it with a weight. And once we got it to the altitude where we were at, pushed a button, it unspun, and it's just like a yo-yo. For every action is equal and opposite reaction. So that's the sound you hear go. Well, what it did, it didn't hit no dome or anything like that. That stopped it from spinning. The next sound that you hear is ding. That is a piece of C4 that's wrapped around the body itself, and the booster just fell off, and you'll see the booster, and it didn't hit no dome because that thing is still going well over 400 miles an hour, that is still traveling. And the payload is still traveling at that point. And you'll see, if you look further on, you'll see that it's actually pulled way away from the booster, and the booster is floating in space also at that point. Then you'll see it turning over, and you'll see the Earth itself. Again, it did not hit a dome, and it's very simple. If you take a baseball and throw it straight up in the air, will it keep on going till it hits a dome, or will it hit inertia and come back to you. Well, that's basically what happened with our space shot. It just ran out of inertia. And at that point, it turned around, came back, and it was recovered. Both pieces were recovered with the parachutes, which they're back on Earth. But I have this bet with somebody. Anybody wants to take me on this bet? I have a beautiful 1978 Corvette race car that's beautiful. And if anybody out there that thinks the Earth is flat, if they could take a picture of somebody jumping off the edge of the Earth, they got my Corvette. And that's the deal on camera.
All right. Thank you very much.
As a final note, I would like to point out that even GeoShifter himself, the channel that originally started this, admitted in a follow-up video that this explanation was correct, and that's the real reason why the rocket appeared to stop. But of course, his follow-up video did not receive nearly as much attention or as many views as the original, and there are still many flat earthers on YouTube who continue to repeat the claim years later that the video shows a rocket hitting the dome. But we know the truth. It really was just a yo-yo D-spin mechanism that stopped the rocket's rotation. That brings us to the end of this video. I want to give a very special thanks to Kai Michaelson for taking some time out of his tour at the Sands Space History Center to go on camera with me. And I want to wish you all clear skies and a very Merry Christmas.